Hey guys, welcome to the Trash Picture Show. I'm nearly at my 300 subscriber milestone, so to kind of earmark that, I am going to do a tag video on my favorite topic, which is sci-fi horror. Now, I will be tagging people at the end, but if you're watching this and want to participate, please feel free. It's six simple questions. I hope they're fun. I hope you find them interesting. And if you want to take part, just PM me or even contact me on my YouTube and I can add them to my playlist. So let's get this started. Question one: what for you defines sci-fi horror? Well, the thing you have to remember with sci-fi and horror, they're genres that go together really well. And I don't think it's any kind of coincidence that the first science fiction science fiction story in literature was also a horror story. Mary Shelley's Frankenstein is basically a story of science gone awry and how it can lead to very kind of shocking and detrimental effects on the human race. I think when a lot of people think of sci-fi horror, they think of the likes of Aliens or Event Horizon or something that takes place in the far future, which isn't always necessarily true. With like even the recent movie of The Invisible Man or The Fly, they're kind of science run amok. Even 28 Days Later, a lot of people kind of slam that into the category of a zombie movie, but it does also fall into the category of science fiction horror. It is science run amok. It is man messing with nature for his own gains and it backfiring. So yeah, for me, I think science fiction horror can be anything where mankind meddles with knowledge it shouldn't and tries to mess with, be it technology or nature, for his own means, and it ends up blowing up in his face. So for me, sci-fi horror is essentially anything that involves kind of the manipulation of the sciences that causes a kind of a horrific detrimental effect on mankind. Question two: what is your favorite sci-fi horror of all time? Alien. I absolutely adore Alien. At the time in the 70s, we had the likes of Star Trek and we had the likes of 2001, which were a very kind of clean and sterile kind of environment. And I think for a lot of people it would be hard to envisage themselves in that kind of environment, in that very kind of space age, kind of techno savvy, very kind of clinical and sterile environment. Whereas in Alien on the Nostromo, you had basically truckers in space, you had blue collar workers in space who weren't scientists, who weren't researchers, that had to deal with an organism that was incredibly dangerous, incredibly malvoyant, and they weren't outfitted or had the knowledge to deal or handle with the creature. I think the interesting thing about the xenomorph, while it is a very dangerous and kind of cunning creature, it's more the situations it finds itself in that makes it more dangerous. For example, in the first movie, they're in space, they're in the vacuum of space. They obviously can't shoot it outright. They don't have the proper knowledge. They're not scientists. Again, I'll reiterate, they're truckers in space. In the second movie, you're dealing with an army of aliens. And in the third movie, you have convicts who have no weapons. And the alien is a permutation of a more advanced creature. So I do think that Alien kind of put a kind of set genre on science fiction horror, which a lot of kind of movies try to replicate, especially a lot of straight to video kind of horror sci-fi's popped up after Alien came out. You had like not Forbidden Planet, but Galaxy of Terror, which Jim Cameron actually worked on. But you had a lot of films trying to replicate the horror of that and missing the whole point. They tried to get a kind of Star Wars deal into the feeling of their movies, whereas I think the real kind of draw for the original movie was it was truckers in space. It was workers. It was blue collar human beings. They weren't scientists. They weren't mercenaries. They were just regular Joes, and I think people could identify with that. You could identify with Brett and Parker, these two guys constantly bitching about their job. You could identify with Dallas, who's just a guy doing a regular kind of job, 9 to 5 job. And I think that's why Alien works so well. it's set in the far future, but it can make people kind of empathize and put themselves into the shoes of the crew of the Nostromo. And the design of the alien by Giger is fantastic. This pseudo-sexual monster, which I think as the progressive movies went on, really kind of got diluted, but by and large, the original Alien is still fantastic. So yeah, my favorite sci-fi horror of all time is Alien. Question 3. What is your favorite new or recently released horror movie? Um, it's going to be either a toss-up between Underwater and Upgrade. I'm going to say Underwater because it has a lot of throwbacks and nice nods to Alien. And for me, if you kind of grew up watching a lot of these bargain bin Alien copycats that came out, I remember going to the video store with my dad and picking out like these bad kind of Alien Invader or like of unknown origin or some kind of shitty kind of Alien knockoff. This was not a knockoff of Alien or not a knockoff of Leviathan. This was a love letter of 80s sci-fi horror, and it done it so well. And for me, it felt like this was the closest I was going to get to traveling back in time to 1979 and seeing Alien in the theater. And the performances are great. Like if you saw my prior video, I will eat this hat for giving out that Kristen Stewart because she kicks ass in it as the role of Nora, who's this kind of very Ripley-esque character. And it didn't blow its load with the creatures too early, which was another thing I enjoyed. So yeah, definitely Underwater. If you were looking for something more in the vein of, say, Paul Van Horen-esque sci-fi horror, I would definitely check out The Upgrade, which is very cool. Logan Marshall Hall is in it, and he plays a paraplegic who gets a chip called STEM. And it's more of a grindhouse kind of sci-fi horror, where he goes Charles Bronson on the guys who killed his girlfriend and debilitated him, and it's very gory. Again, it's very much like a Paul Van Verhoeven sci-fi horror movie of the 80s. So, next question. Question 4. What for you is the most underrated horror sci-fi? Um, Probably Frank Darabont's The Blob. I remember the thing, while it didn't initially get a lot of recognition, now it has a major cult status. And it's the same with The Fly. Both those movies done very well. And they have recognition. Whereas Frank Darabont's The Blob, had amazing visual effects and was incredibly gory and very visceral. I remember even a small kid gets dissolved in it. And whereas the original movie, it was a invader for space, the Darabont one had a kind of bioweapon which was bred in space by the US military, and they basically fobbed it off as an extraterrestrial. And I think it done a fantastic job of capturing uh, the veal and the virile of that kind of creature, this thing that would absorb and dissolve you, and it really kind of had a visceral kind of quality to it. So if you get a chance, definitely check out Frank Darabont's remake of The Blob. Question 5. What for you is your guilty pleasure sci-fi horror movie? It would have to be Split Second with Rutger Hauer, where he is in, I think, 2002 London, which is suffering from flooding, and he has to hunt down a creature that may not be a mutated version of Satan. It's very silly, very strange, and you can tell that Rutger Hauer is pissed drunk over the course of the movie. And yeah, it's set in the future, so it does kind of tick all the boxes for a sci-fi horror. So if you get a chance, definitely check out Split Second. It's kind of like if Blade Runner and Alien had a baby, and you threw a bit of Evil Dead in there for a good measure. One of those really, it's obviously an Alien Blade Runner knockoff, but Rutger Hauer steals the show. So definitely check out Split Second. And question 6: which unproduced sci-fi horror would you like to have seen made? Um, I definitely think I would have liked to seen the version of either William Gibson's Alien 3 or Vincent Ward's Alien 3. Vincent Ward's Alien 3 is legendary. It has Ripley land on a wooden cathedral-like planet that she has to team up with a bunch of monks to defeat the alien. And yeah, you can see elements of it in Alien 3, with like the kind of the apocalyptic kind of Mennonite prisoners. But yeah, it would have been very ambitious and very strange. I don't know would it have worked, but it's definitely one I would have been interested to see. And also William Gibson's version of Alien 3, where it's set in a way station, and it's kind of a Cold War analogy where both Weyland-Yutani and the UUP, the Union of Progressive People, are both trying to breed an alien in a bio war against each other, an arms race against each other. And Hicks, surviving Hicks and Bishop, have to kind of deal with the fallout of that. So yeah, either Vincent Ward or William Gibson's version of Alien 3, I would have loved seeing. They're two sci-fi horror movies I would have loved seeing. So that is my tag, and in this tag I'm going to tag for this tag Jason from Horrific Nightmares, Anthropomatic Fiend, the Soulless Trenchcoat, Dave Maggot, and Sean Erskine. And again, guys, if any of you are watching this and you want to participate, please do feel free. Just hit me up in the comments or messages so I can add it to the playlist. So yeah, my name is Martin. This has been the Trash Picture Show, and have a good one. Take care. Bye now.